Hey y'all, and welcome back to my channel. In this tutorial we are going to make a V-split 24 ounce tumbler, and we are going to be using a couple of patterns to vinyl wrap a 32 ounce tumbler using vinyls and decals from the latest Gracefully Created Brittany Bundle. Normally these come with 12 patterned vinyls. However, we wanted to switch it up a little bit and see what y'all thought about 6 patterned vinyls and 6 white decals. I choose all of the patterns, find the matching decals, and make sure that everything coordinates together so you can mix and match all that you want. The theme for this one was fall and back to school. And then Judy over at Gracefully Created does all of the extra hard work and gets these printed for y'all. And then of course I create a tutorial to show you ideas on how you can use them. We're going to jump right in and start on our V-split. So I have chose this white floral pattern and I am wrapping it around a 24 plump from the Steel Magnolia. I marked where the pattern vinyl overlapped and I'm just going to trim off that excess. Make sure you save your scraps because those are perfect for small things such as this bookmark blank from CAMIPAIGE Boutique. Customers love having extras that match their tumblers, so that is a really good idea and I will link that down below for y'all. Now what we are going to do now is line the vinyl back up, and then I went right under the bottom lip of the tumbler and marked that off, and then we trimmed off the bottom excess. I folded it slightly and pinched it on one side where our bottom is going to be, and then I put it at an angle from the center point at the bottom to the side at the top and cut this at an angle so we get our perfect triangle that will fit around our tumbler. We're going to double check to make sure that this fits perfectly, and then I'm going to lift up a little piece of that vinyl, trim off some of that back, so once I have it lined up I can pop it in place and then remove the rest of the backing. I put that in place and then worked my way around the tumbler as I removed that back. All vinyl from Gracefully Created is matte and removable, which means it is really easy to work without having any of those like vinyl tools. You can just rub it down with your hand without worrying about scratching or putting any marks on a glossy surface. And also, if it's not lined up perfectly, then you can lift it up just like I did and put it back in place without damaging your vinyl or any of the tackiness coming off the back of it. Now, if the point of the vinyl is too close to the bottom of your cup, or if it overlaps, you're going to want to trim that off. So what you do is trim it off evenly on both sides, and as you go up towards the top, just taper off what you were trimming so that you don't go all the way to the connecting point at the top, and put any distance between those connecting points. Hope that makes sense, but that's the easiest way I can think to explain it. And then we're going to take some painter's tape and just run that along the pattern vinyl side all the way down to that point, and then trim off any excess so that we can paint the base for our glitter. Now, if you wanted to use spray paint, you can do two different things. You can either cover up your vinyl completely with the tape or something else to keep it from getting overspray on it, and then of course go paint after you apply your vinyl, or you can spray paint your entire tumbler, which is the easiest way, and then apply your vinyl. I just knew I was going to use this Crystalac Flippin' Awesome paint, so I just decided to do it this way. Now, it's best if you use a all over makeup brush to apply this paint. It goes on super smooth, and using a brush like I'm using here sometimes will make it a little streaky depending on what color you are using. So if you have a makeup brush, or if you can grab one, definitely do so. It works much better with this paint. The color I'm using is moss green, again from the Crystalite company. It is from their sample Flippin' Awesome paint collection. I really love these paints, and I think it's awesome that they offer a sample size set. Alright, so we're going to sit that to the side to dry. We are not removing our tape because we're going to use epoxy to apply our glitter. So allow that to dry, and then we are moving on to the second cup. I put my decal on top just to make sure I was giving plenty of room. And then I picked out 2 sheets of pattern vinyl, and we're not going to be too particular on how big or small these are. I just marked it off where I wanted it on the tumbler, and then marked it with my nail and trimmed them with my vinyl trimmer. I don't get particular on the sizes of my vinyl strips, only because every decal that I use on these is different. So if you ever make a tumbler like this and you want to put your own decal on there, or have one from Gracefully Created, make sure the very first thing you do is measure out where you are going to put it on your tumbler, mark it off, and then you can apply your vinyl and your glitter. It's easiest to get everything straight if you go along the rim first. So we're going to place the larger piece of vinyl alongside the bottom rim. I trimmed off a little bit of that excess on the back so I can press it down once I have it lined up, and then worked my way around the tumbler, pressing the vinyl down and removing the backing at the same time. Putting that large piece down first and lining it up with the bottom of the tumbler made the second one a piece of cake. So I just started this strip at the same spot that I started the bottom strip of vinyl. I did that so whenever I trim off the excess, my seam is going to be on the same side. I grabbed my painter's tape and put that right along where these overlap, trimmed down the painter's tape, and then just pulled off the excess, lifted the vinyl, and got that little slither piece of vinyl out from underneath. Now I'm going to be painting this one 2 different colors. I want to match the bottom vinyl, which is like a really deep army green. So I'm taking moss green and slate gray. Also Flippin' Awesome paints from the Crystalite company. I'm going to mix those 2 together, and then I got pretty much a perfect match. I did, however, use a little bit too much paint, so I did have to remove some of that off. These paints go on so smooth, and they're really pigmented, especially the darker colors. So you definitely do not need as much paint as I used here. You just need a tiny little dollop and it will paint a section like this. It would have been smart if I taped off the bottom so I could quickly paint this, but y'all know, if you've watched my tutorials in the past, I like to make things a little complicated. Completely unintentional, of course, because I want to show y'all the best tips and tricks and ways to get things done, but sometimes we end up in situations like this. So tape off your bottom and then paint it, makes it a whole lot easier. Also, tape off your top of your vinyl, because I didn't do that either. I guess I was like, yeah, living on the edge today. So for the top, I went with the sage and lovely linen. My goal was to get a very light sagey color. I mixed those up and then painted the top portion of this tumbler. I was pretty surprised that using 2 really light colors, I only had to do 1 coat. I ended up adding a little bit more of that lovely linen into the mix. I mixed it up once again and then painted all around the top portion of the tumbler and allowed that to dry as well. You can let these air dry. They do have a longer dry time because they can be used for glitter application as well. But I usually use my heat gun. Just make sure that it's on low heat and you're not getting too close to your paint because you don't want to cause this to lift or bubble from your tumbler. And once that dried, I finally did tape everything off to prep for our glitter application. I am using DIY Speedy Petey Fast Set Epoxy for our glitter application. I love using this to apply my glitter because it dries incredibly fast and I'm able to spray seal, which is necessary on these since we have areas that I don't want glitter in just a couple of hours versus waiting 2 to 4 for if I'm using some sort of glitter glue. You only want to use a tiny bit of epoxy. You almost want it difficult to move around on your tumbler, but make sure you do have all areas covered completely. So I probably used less than a milliliter on each of these tumblers since we were only doing a section instead of the full. Now on this one, we're going to do a solid glitter up top, and then on the bottom in that dark green section, we're going to do a waterfall coming from the bottom of the tumbler. So since we are not doing the entire bottom portion of this tumbler, I only went about 3/4 of the way up that green floral vinyl, which also will help prevent getting glitter in areas that I don't want it to go. We're going to use Firefly from PDB Creative Studio for the top. This is a highly sought after glitter, so it is out of stock quite often, but they do have restocks every Wednesday, and the majority of the time there is an opportunity to grab some of this glitter. And you can use any white opal. You just want it to be an opal so that you can see the color underneath your glitter. Next, we're going to come in with Tidal, also from PDB Creative Studio. It's a beautiful multi-size mix that has a little bit of gold flake in it, and I thought that it really complemented the gold tint that you get, or gold shift that you get from Firefly that we used up top. I went heavy on the bottom and around the bottom rim, and then tilted the tumbler up at an angle so that it can waterfall down or up the bottom. Once I finished that up, I removed the painter's tape and then sat this to the side to dry for 2 hours. And for our split tumbler, we're going to do an ombre between Firefly and Tidal. I am using Firefly first on both of these because it is an opal. You can see through it. So if I were to use the other glitter first, if it got in any areas that I didn't want to, then you will be able to see it through the Firefly. So I went heavy around the bottom, held the cup at an angle, and then allowed that glitter just to fall towards the opposite side of the tumbler. Doing that, getting that first one perfect, you can go in with the second one pretty heavy and get a flawless ombre. I removed the painter's tape from this one as well. Set this one to the side, and then I went in with 3 coats of the new Color Shot matte clear coat. You can grab these paints at most Walmarts, and I'm absolutely loving them. So far we have not had any clogs, and the paint just goes on so incredibly smooth and dries really fast. So I gave these tumblers 2 coats of DIY Speedy Petey epoxy, and as you can see, I have sanded the bottom rim of our 32 ounce and a couple small places on the 24 ounce. You can sand in areas that you are not going to place your decal. The decals are white on the back of the actual image, however the border is clear. So if you put a decal over top of a sanded area, it's basically going to seal in that sanded space, and you'll be able to see it through the decal. Now, I don't have exact measurements on all of the strips that I use because I just cut them by myself on my vinyl cutter. I believe these are about 1/4 of an inch, and I am just starting from the points and working my way around that seam. This should be super easy because you are going along a seam that you cut perfectly to go on your tumbler. So on that bottom piece, you want your vinyl strips to overlap above the bottom rim of the tumbler, and on the top you want them to overlap below the top rim of your tumbler. It makes it look really nice and clean to have that point instead of it being cut off. So you just take your craft knife, and this is my favorite craft knife, I will link it down below for y'all, and cut straight down that point and remove the excess vinyl. You can stop right here, add on your decal, and you will have a beautiful tumbler. But just in case you're like me and want to add a little extra flair anywhere that you can, I'm going to show you how to do that. So I am going to take 2.008 strips of this matte black vinyl from Tech Wrap Craft and place it directly in the center of my textured gold vinyl, which is also Tech Wrap Craft, by the way. I will trim off the excess where they overlap straight down the center so it makes a point, just like I did the first gold strips of vinyl. And then I'm going to repeat those steps on either side of that original strip with some more textured gold vinyl. Now for the gold strips coming up soon, I did cut them using my Cricut program, and they are cut to 0.008 by 11.5 inches. I use them quite often, so I always have a strip of them laying around to grab whenever I need them. I'm gonna let this play through for y'all so you can just see how I place and trim these. Now that we have made this one extra, we can move on to the next tumbler. For this one, I am using this peachy color matte vinyl, also from Tech Wrap Craft. I'm going to cut a couple little strips about 1/4 of an inch each to go over the seams of our vinyl. Now, when doing a tumbler that has vinyl wrapped and I already have a seam on there, I always start over that seam once again with any striping that I add on. It helps keep everything on one side and gives a nice clean look. After I added those two on, I come back in with those textured gold strips and added it directly in the center of both of my peachy colored strips. I made sure that all of the seams were on the back side of the tumbler, and we added on our decal directly on the opposite side. And again, these are white decals, so you have a clear border. However, behind the actual image is a milky white layer of color, which means that you can put this decal on any color, dark or light, and it's going to show up. Make sure that you press your decal down really well as you are removing that backing, and if by chance you have a spot where there's a bubble underneath, you can either pop that with your craft knife and press it back down, or since it's removable, you can just pull it off, reposition, and try it again. I'm going to epoxy these tumblers 2 times to make sure that the decals are sealed in really nice. Now, sometimes when you have layered vinyl, the epoxy will dry a little uneven over top of that vinyl layer. Just very carefully and lightly sand, and then add on your next layer. And since epoxy has self-leveling properties, it will even itself out and your last and final coat will be nice and smooth. I hope that y'all have enjoyed this tutorial. If you want to get your hands on one of these Gracefully Created Brittany bundles, they will be released July 1st at 10 a.m. Central at gracefullycreatedccd.com. The bundles are at a discounted price and are limited release, so there will be a limited amount available. However, if you are unable to grab one at a discounted price, everything will be released individually later the next week. I just absolutely love getting the bundles, especially this new revamped bundle that we have where you are guaranteed 6 different tumbler designs combining the vinyl and the 6 decals for the upcoming holiday or season. And we most definitely want to know if you prefer the pack of 12 pattern vinyls, or do you really love this new 6 pattern vinyl and 6 coordinating white decals. Let us know down in the comments for the next bundle coming in August. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Hit the bell in the corner to be notified anytime a new tutorial drops. Thank you all so much, and we'll see you next time.